Hi, happy Sunday. Today is going to be a very chill stream. I do have a special guest here today, and we're going to be talking about rental properties, how you can take rental properties from small homes and really make some buku bucks. We're also going to be discussing one thing. I need a favor from all of you. I rarely do this, but if you haven't noticed, I'm like so close to 50,000 subscribers. Like I could taste it. It's so close. And my goal for this year was by the end of October, I make 50,000 subscribers, which I'm so close. So if you could just like hand out this channel to people that are interested in manufactured homes, modular homes, or they want a little bit of entertainment because of the fact that I do some react type videos and they can watch some, little pop culture kind of stuff. Anybody that you believe that would be truly interested in the type of content and videos that I make, please let them know about my channel. Like, I can't do it without your help. So I don't promote my channel on anywhere else except for YouTube. So if you could just do me that teensy weensy little favor before my birthday, which is November 5th, just saying, just saying. But without further ado, I'm going to have a special guest. His name is Joe Eves, and he's flipped many properties. Now, I've only flipped properties that I rent out, but I think he's done both. This is a very casual conversation. So at any time, drop in your questions for Joe and I about what you want to know about flipping properties and using them for either rentals or resale. So I'm going to go into the comment section and see if there's anybody has comment. I see that we have 15 people in here. Don't forget to hit the little like button. I put that as a post at the top. And believe it or not, I know that the housing market seems like it's really crazy right now, but I'm telling you, this is a perfect time to start really thinking about getting into some flipped properties because you know what? The world may be changing, but real estate always stays the same. We're going to add you to the stream. Hello, Mr. Joe Eves.
Hey,
how are you?
it's so good. Thanks for having me on. It's
Thanks
been a little while since we chatted.
It has been a little while since we chatted. Now, I know that you have family that has tiny homes that they use for rentals, correct?
Yeah, yep.
And how many properties have you flipped yourself?
So I probably about a dozen. So I've done a few. I'm actually looking to hold more stuff now than flip and resell.
Okay.
But when I first got into real estate, I flipping homes here in Southern Utah was a lot. There were a lot more foreclosures on the market. There were a lot more things that you could get good buys on. So it was really tough raising the capital for it. Now it's kind of the reverse. I don't know if it's like that for you, but like for us, there aren't very many good foreclosures, but there are a lot of capital. Like people have a lot of money and they want to put it into real estate. And so it makes it really hard to find actually something that is a good deal in pencils and makes a lot of financial sense to either hold or to flip. So
I have this thing in my head because I've seen like real estate for the last, I don't know, 13 plus years. And I just see things, the writing on the wall with people with this whole, COVID stuff, that there's going to be people that are going to be losing their homes. So I predict there's going to be more foreclosures, which opens up as terrible as it sounds, but it does open up an opportunity for people that are looking to get into the flip market. I personally only like flip them to rent them because it's sustainable and it helps, our income.
sure. Yeah.
So what made you change your mind? Because you had flipped properties as well.
So I think the biggest thing for me, well, I think learning a lot and really underwriting a deal to make sure that it's actually a really good deal. Because a lot of people are like, oh, just because it says foreclosure, that doesn't mean that it's a good deal.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Yeah, you can say, oh, it's going to the courthouse, and then the price where they start maybe one price, and then by the time the bidding starts, it gets blown up, and then all of a sudden it's not a good deal. And honestly, a lot of times it ends up costing more money, and you don't make any money or you make very little money for all the effort that you put into rehabbing the home.
I always suggest, if this is your first time doing it, is to work with a contractor that's flipped properties before, to go with you, to go and price it out correctly. When they say it's too high, like that's too high, we're not going to make any money off of that. Listen to them, because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like that's definitely something that when you first get into it, you may think, well, I just need to put a little cosmetic repair, a little cosmetic things here and there.
That never is the case.
And then you get into it and there's mold, you get into it and there's termites, there's
cement down the pipes.
Yeah, popsicles in the drains. I mean, there's all kinds. I've seen
wells that are full with animals, dead animals.
Yeah. So I think if you're like seriously considering it, this is what I would recommend. Like if you're really considering doing it, is if it were me, I would partner with someone, like you said, either a contractor or someone that has done flips before, and you go hustle and you find the deal and then bring someone into it. So because if they're already doing it, they're not really going to be like, oh, hey, why don't you come and split half the profit with me and I'll give you, because they're doing all the work already up front. So if you can add value, which is finding a deal, then, and there are, even in this market, there are deals to be had. I flipped a house. I bought one in March of this year, and it was a phone call actually to get it listed, and I was like, oh, the person that had lived there, she passed away, and her child, she had an only child, and she lived in Washington State. And she's like trying to clean it up and all this stuff, and she just happened to Google realtor in this area and my name came up. So I went over and met her. And I said, you could do two things. One, you could fix this all up and you could actually sell it for quite a bit, or you can let it go as is. You don't even have to clean anything, and I'll buy it from you. And she's like, well, tell me what would you give me? And so I was like, okay, perfect. So I walked through the house and I'm really familiar with the area. That's the other thing, is you need to be really familiar with the area that you're buying.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't know, then you could be like, oh, that's a great deal. And then you find out they're tearing out something and putting in an intersection or a freeway, or like, just, you have to like really know the area. And I knew the area really well. So I was like, okay, that's
why I only buy in my specific area. Like
right.
I live in Ascension Parish, and I would not buy anywhere because I know this area. Like I know what goes on here. I know what roads are going to be fixing up soon. I know all about that.
Yeah. And that's huge. That's huge for a flip, because then you can look at it and go, okay, this, it may take a little bit of time. And so I went through the house, and the house was built in 2000. So it's not super old. And I was like, okay, it's been run down. It's had a old, yeah, like an old lady there that she never went, but it was on a bigger piece of property. So I was like, look, it's worth, if you don't do anything, it's worth like $187,000. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great. I'll take it. And I'm like, okay. So I bought it.
Sometimes people just don't want the headache.
And that's exactly what she said. She was like, you are doing me. So, well, first of all, so this is the other thing, is when you're flipping, and especially in this kind of a situation, because this actually was kind of with the only child, she didn't actually, there was no joint tenancy with her. So it actually had to go to, I'm forgetting the term.
Probate.
Yeah. It had to go to probate. So it went into probate, and she's like, do you know how good a probate attorney? And I'm like, I actually do. So get to where you know those types of attorneys, and that they're loyal to give you the information once it goes back, so that they don't give it to like their buddy that's like, hey, I got this deal, and then they snake it from you. So I gave it to him, and I'm like, hey, can you handle the probate on this? And so they took care of the probate, and then I'm like, I'll close in a week. I don't need an inspection. I don't need anything. I'll just do everything as is. Cause I already knew I'd walked through it with her. She'd showed me everything, and I'm like, okay, it's great. And there was a little bit of concern with the roof and some other things, but I was like, well, I think, and I'm like, worst case scenario, I could sell it for $250 like that. I'm like, I can put in 10 grand. and, make a little bit of money. So
How much did you end up selling it for?
$275.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That was a good deal. I do want to. The lawnmower made a good point. He said that the previous owner of his house did a DIY and had no clue about building codes. That happens all the
All the
time.
time. All the
Home
time.
inspectors will always post these pictures of people that think because they watched HGTV that they know how to flip a house. It's very important if you're going to do this to get licensed and insured contractors. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more, but you want to make sure that if there is something wrong, you can go back to them and say, hey, you put in a really crappy roof. You're going to have to fix it, and they have to honor it because they don't want to ruin their company reputation.
That actually, I dealt with the flooring. So, so what we ended up doing is we tore out all of the flooring. We stripped it completely. Got a dumpster. And
did you do more than $10,000 worth of work on it though?
14,000.
14,000. Well, that's still pretty good.
Yeah. So 14,000, which was a little bit more, but it's because I put in some granite and I did a couple other things that I wasn't going to do, but I'm like, yeah, it's already there. So I spent about $4,000 more than I wanted or that I had budgeted. But honestly, the market changed so much that, it was a crazy deal. And it was only on the market for 30 days. Like it went under contract within like 2 days. So what was nice is when I pulled everything out, I did all that stuff. I have a team of a contractor, a licensed general contractor, and I have a really good company that does my flooring. They actually lease from a building that I own. So they lease their space from me. And so I'm like, hey, give me a good deal and maybe we can keep your rent low. So they lease the space. I went to them and I have all the general and all the subcontractors and I didn't do anything myself. I subbed every single thing out because I had bought a duplex in January, and during COVID, I was rehabbing it, and I was like, I'm never going to do this again myself. And it was actually cheaper and faster to hire professionals to do the work. And I used the same crew that I used on my duplex for the single family home that I bought.
And always do stuff like if you know that you can't do stuff like a roof, and if you're not, handy with plumbing, just
electrical,
hire somebody. I mean, my God, I do want to show you this real quick. So my husband and I, years ago, I'm guessing about 6-7 years ago, bought a house that had 2 properties on the house. So the woman was a hoarder. And the house that she lived in was this big, like the house that she lived in was a small house. And then the big house, she just kept junk. Like it was wall to wall junk, but it was like, nobody wanted it. It was a gem. So we bought these 2 properties for $135,000. We put about $30,000 worth of work because it needed everything. Like both homes needed a new roof. Both homes needed new air conditioning units. We had to put on separate, electricals and everything. But this little house, believe it or not, it's a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. It does have a little laundry area. Rents out for $750 a month.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, it's super cute. When we had it, it was pink. The outside was pink, like salmon pink, and everything else was a green. It was lovely, lovely, total gem. Every window was rotted. We fixed all the bottom of that was completely the wood rot completely. And then this area right here was covered all the way to the top of the fence in leaves.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was just, yeah, she was a gem. Like yeah. But that little house, honest to God, as soon as we put out the sign, I would have 100 1-bedroom little houses if I could. If I could have a subdivision full of just 1-bedroom little houses, I would have I would have 30 of them, because the minute the sign goes out is the minute it rents out. It's always a couple like that's, having a hard time, or it's a young girl who has a very small baby and that she sleeps in the same room, or the baby sleeps in the same room anyways. It's always someone trying to get on their feet again, and it instantly rents. They pay on time, but whenever they leave, it's not a big deal. So I always say the smaller the better. I know that in a lot of people's mind, they need to have this big giant house in order to make money, but I believe, and maybe, and then you tell me your opinion, but I think the money is in the smallest houses. I think that's where you get the best return.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at least when you're turning them into a rental and you're doing a long-term hold, for sure. Because every time, let's be honest, renters don't treat your house like you treat your house, and so
Right.
there's going to be repairs. There's going to be stuff that needs to be taken care of. Mostly cosmetic stuff, but that stuff, if it's a smaller square footage and only 1 bedroom, 1 bath type thing, then that's way less money than,
it's so easy.
yeah,
So much easier.
than
I
trying to
will
fix.
I will say too, if we had planned on flipping it to resell that house, we would have done our plan completely different. But we really just tried to take the rust and the cobwebs off. We, instead of if we were flipping it, we would have removed the paneling and put up drywall and redone it. But we just painted over it because we're renting it out.
Right.
There's an old fireplace in there. And I'm like, I am not repairing an old fireplace that is full of bats right now. I just brick that sucker up. It's a rental. I don't care. Not that it isn't nice. Like, we did everything nice. We refurbished all the cabinets. We put in new countertops. We did it nice, but I wasn't going to go all out like I would if I was to have flipped that property. I would have turned that little house into a beautiful game room or a mother-in-law suite, that type of thing. And I would have done much nicer upgrades on it. But if you're just renting it out, do not go crazy with upgrades and stuff. And rent is cheap too.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think one thing that you have to know kind of what your plan is. Like, if you're going to buy it to hold, then you'll have a budget that you want to allocate. But one thing that here's the other thing is, some people get into these flips, and I've seen it not like at arm's distance for some of my friends. They go in there and then they're flipping it, but they're treating it like it's their primary residence, and they're dumping money into it that they're never going to recoup, because they're like, well, it's got to have this and it's got to have that and it's got to be, and I'm like, okay, one, you're making it way nicer than any comparable around, and you're not going to get your value out of it. So when you're flipping, you kind of need to see where the average price point is and be
Stick
happy.
with it.
Yeah, be happy. And that's where a flip really is. You make your money in the purchase. It's never in the sell. You really have to be able to negotiate well. If you're doing it yourself and you're not a licensed real estate agent, I highly recommend that you at least get someone that you trust to give you good comps, to go out and to go, okay, am I overpaying? What are they, not what's active, but what is actually closed in the last 3 or 4 months in that area? And but I've seen it a lot, actually.
And look at their upgrades that they've done to the area.
That's it. I've seen it where they dump in more and more money, and then they're in love with this thing, but then they're upside down because they built this really, really nice house, and they've flipped it and added all of these nice features, but it sucked out all the profit too.
Right. Like, so they bought the house for $100,000, for let's just say, and then they do like $25,000 worth of upgrades, but the average house in the neighborhood sells for $135,000. Wow, you really just messed yourself up, because you have to pay the real estate agents, and now you're upside down. Like, and I've seen it. People do it because they get so excited, and they're like, "Well, I they always say, well, I would want to live here." I'm almost like, that's great, except for now you overdid it. Like, you graded and you sold it, and you're in love with it. But first of all, is it going to appraise? Like, you got to think of all the factors. You put in that $10,000 shower, but is it worth it? Would you have done just as well if you put in a $4,000 insert tub type thing? You would have done just as well.
Well, and that's, I think, the biggest thing is understanding your market and understanding the demographic and the location that you're buying. And people get sucked into this, and you nailed it, is they get sucked into the emotion of doing this flip, and that because they bought it and they saw how terrible it was, and what, like, when you'd walk through this one house that I bought, like, it was bad. There were a lot of really, really bad things. And then you see the pictures when they're done and you're like, wow, that's really nice. But the whole
I wish I had my pictures. I wish I had downloaded, because they were so, like, I actually have them and they're on Facebook, but I forgot to download them and put them in the live stream. But it is bad. Anne-Marie had a very good question. Anne-Marie said, compared to traditional home flipping, how much value is there in tiny home flipping percentage wise? All I know is they run out like instantaneously.
Yeah, I would say it depends on what your end goal is. If you're buying it to flip to hold, or if you're buying it to flip, like knowing what you're doing. But the percentages, there's a formula that I use where it gives me a return on my investment. So I would focus more on like a particular type of home. If you want to just flip tiny homes, one thing that's really big, and my brother-in-law just did this. He's been there about 2 years now, but he found a piece of land that was there was a subdivision that was supposed to go on the other side of the highway, and so the UDOT had already built the turning lanes and everything, but the subdivision went under and never actually happened. So they put these turning lanes and all that. So he bought the parcel across the way. I want to say he bought it for like $100,000 or somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly. It was 5 acres.
That's a good deal.
It's a great deal, especially this is traffic that goes to Zion National Park,
right,
through Arizona. So there's probably about 2 million cars that go through it every year.
That is a diamond. and
they do have world-class mountain biking for Gooseberry Mesa like 10 minutes away. So it's like, he was like, I want to build tiny homes, and I want to do this. And I'm very familiar with the area. And I told him, I said, look, the issue is you have a great idea. And when he started telling me numbers, like, I can do it for this much and I can do it, I'm like, you're way off. I'm like, you're off on how much you think you can do it for. You're off on your time frame. He thought that the city would give him permits pretty easy. I'm like, you're 2 years out for permits, or a year and a half. Those guys are, and because I'm building, I have a subdivision up the road from him that I've developed with a couple of partners, and they're a nightmare to work with. And so I just have experience in that area. So I told him that, and he's like, whatever. So he ended up getting it, but it took him twice as long, 3 times as much money as he thought he was going to do, because the city made him do all these improvements and all of these things that he doesn't really need, but they did it to try to stop him from building it. It's just stupid politics. So he ended up getting it done, and now I think he's got like 20 units on that 5 acres, and each unit, he has tiny cabins that are like a really, really small, like 200 or 300 square feet. Maybe they're not even that big. They're really small. It's like a little teeny bedroom, like a closet.
What's the website? I can show it.
It's Gooseberry Mesa. Let's see, Gooseberry Lodges.
Gooseberry Lodges. Yeah, I'll pull it up, see if we can find it. In Apple Valley, Utah?
That's it.
All right, let's see.
And you might want to go to like booking.com or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought they had
because they don't actually have a website.
What?
I know. Don't even
don't shoot the messenger. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I'm not.
Oh, look, we got a super sticker for $10. Thank you, construction cronies. I appreciate you. I do want to say that real quick, Family Fisher says, and my house will sell for more because it's my house. He says all sellers say that. Yes.
Yes. Because I have emotional ties to this house that will sell for more than anyone else's house. That's exactly. Yeah. That's like so true.
They can't help it. Let's see if we can put this up. All right. Is this it?
I don't know. Can you go to another picture? I think that's it.
Yeah, it says Gooseberry Lodges, 7 photos.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Is this? Yeah, these are them, right?
Yeah, they must be pictures of what someone here. I've got one here. Do you want me to send you a link here?
Yeah, go ahead.
This one. Do you want me to put it in the chat or what?
Yeah, you can put it in the chat. I'll be able to.
Here, try that.
Yeah, it's in a private message. No one can see it.
No, okay.
Okay, so let's do a little copy and paste. But they're super cute. I was supposed to stay there, and I was supposed to interview.
I know. I got you like all this stuff, and then nothing.
Well, you know what was so weird is that I never did book it. For some reason, something was stopping me from booking that, booking it. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm like, why haven't I done this yet? And I feel like the universe was telling me something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you see them now?
Yeah. Yep. They show up now.
Yeah. So these are the little houses, and they're genius. Yeah, they were the same. They were just
Okay.
pictures.
Perfect.
But look how smart this is. And how much does he rent these out a month?
I think because they're on the website, during peak season, I think they get like 120 a night.
Yeah, I think it was like, yeah, but I think when I was there, it was going to be like $100.
Yeah, I think it's like when non-peak, it's like 70 something a night, and then peak season, I want to say it's like 120 or I don't know, somewhere around there.
So do they have like showers and stuff in this?
They have a community so they have yes, the bigger ones all have a shower in them.
Okay, so the smaller ones are more like a cabin that do not have a bathroom.
Yep, and then they have like a little community
kitchenette.
Yep. So you see the kitchenette right there on the other side is the door to the shower and the toilet.
Now, when you're doing communities like this, I will honestly tell you the hardest part of doing any kind of community with tiny homes is the fact that you have to get around the politics of saying that they're tiny homes or cabins or anything that they would find different than what traditional home building would be.
Yeah, so, what he ended up having to do, which is what I think most people would do, is they had to get the zoning changed to resort type zoning, like a motel.
Okay.
And so because of how many dwellings they had on that parcel. Okay. So you definitely have to.
But nobody could long-term rent these out then, could they?
No. I think they could if you build. There is one, they'll let you do one, but if it's for like say you had the manager lives out there in one of the units.
Okay.
So you can have one that, according to the zoning for there, you can have one person stay there and manage the whole thing.
Yeah, let's see how much they say that those things are going for right now. Show prices. Let's try that. Okay. Show prices. It says see if rooms available, check in out day. Well, it's not letting me show the prices, but I'm pretty sure like when I was there it was gonna be like 87 or $90.
It was less, I think, when you were going to come through, and then now they've got everything kind of built out, so it's a little bit more now.
Yeah,
but it's still like anything else here that's nightly rental or any type of that kind of stuff. It's seasonal. Like you have your peak season and your non-peak, and so there's time for when people are going to be the tourism is going to be greater than other parts of the year. And right now, COVID, even though COVID is pretty prevalent and pretty like everywhere, there's a lot of people traveling to Utah right now to vacation.
Well, one of the most popular trends right now is that people are like, look, they're going to be doing school online anyway. So they get in their car and they travel all over the United States in like RVs and stuff. Yep. And they'll stop at places like your brother's just to kind of like get out of the RV for a day.
Yep.
And see the Zion National Park, and they'll go over there. So where is this located? She wanted to know, where is it?
It's in Apple Valley, Utah. It's about 45 minutes from Zion National Park. It's kind of on it's on basically the south side of Zion National Park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my whole point of all this was to tell everybody that don't go big when you go and decide to flip a house. Like, honestly, you'll make the most money buying a little piece of junk house in a pretty halfway decent neighborhood. That's what I always do. I'm like, where's the smallest house that looks the worst in a pretty decent neighborhood? And that's the one I'm like, that's the one I want, you know.
I'd say that's a really big part. And then for me also, it's like, if you've never done a flip, starting smaller hurts less when you screw up.
Right.
Because invariably you'll run into something that you haven't run into, and it's going to be a cost that you didn't know you're going to have to do, and it's going to cost you more. And so when you get into bigger houses, more square feet, there's bigger problems, there's more issues, and there's not as much. Again, it's return on investment. That's really what flipping's about, is how much am I going to get a return on. The house that I bought for 187 and sold for 275 was 1,100 square feet.
Perfect.
It was a
gem.
a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, super easy.
Wow, prices in your area are expensive.
Dave, they're going up even more now.
Do you think because, all right, so I have this theory, because I just don't see how people that have lost their jobs, that are living in homes, that have, done the forbearance. There's only so much forbearance your mortgage company is going to allow you to do. A lot of these people that are in rental homes are going to lose their rent. How long is this sustainable until we start seeing more foreclosures?
So my thing is, I think it depends on the area that you live. Mm-hmm. A big part of it. Like, I was in Cleveland last week for a commercial conference, and they were talking about, rent forbearance, about, homeowners or renters not being able to, or the landlords not being able to collect rent. Those are going into default, and they're not going to be forgiven. Eventually, they're going to have to pay them, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's something that's going to happen. Where I'm at right now, here in Utah, in southern Utah especially, you wouldn't really know that COVID was stopping people, because everyone is out working, everyone is out doing things, and getting stuff going. The biggest difference is we're kind of in a bubble. Like, we're seeing mass exodus from major cities.
California,
Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a lot of people moving from Las Vegas, even Salt Lake City. But I have clients that are from all over the country, even Canada. So like they're all coming here, and that's what's causing the price
inflation.
Yes, it's huge, and it's hard because they're coming with $500,000 to $1 million in equity in their home, and they're taking a loss in their home there, and mm-hmm. still buying something brand new and having something brand new, really nice, and have money in the bank. So
I felt like I won the lottery when I moved here, because in Florida everything was so expensive.
Right.
So I'm like, well, how much is that house? And they're like, oh, that house is only $135. I was like,
you're like, sold. I'll take you.
I'm like, what? I'm like, how much is that house? And she said $200,000. I said, let's walk through that one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we just bought a house for $50,000 less and got double the size.
Yeah,
I got double the size, and I was like, I felt like I won the lottery.
and that's exactly, I think, how people are feeling moving here. And so it's not really like, it's hard to say in our area. I think Las Vegas is going to get hit pretty hard. California for sure.
And that's opportunity for people that are looking to flip properties. There's an opportunity in that.
And that's what I was going to say, is they're going to be losing them. And some of them, like, it might even be that you send out a list to, the people that are on record, on the tax record, start sending out some mailers saying, hey, we'll buy your house. And some people are just tired of collecting rent and trying to get rent. And so some of them, that's the best flips you'll ever find, are before they ever hit any type of MLS, like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. Your very best deals are going to be direct from that person. And if you get to the realtor, it's already been bumped up. It's already been inflated. So it's reaching out to those types of people. And here's a little tip is, if you know a title company, a lot of times title companies have tools to pull owners of record really easy, and it's automated, and they can give it to you in a label to where you could then mail out. So
Here, you can just go on the website.
Yeah,
our website shows it automatically.
Yeah, ours doesn't, but you can ask them and they'll do it. And so like, that's what I would start doing is I bet that even here, there's people that are just sick of dealing with, they've done it for years. They've got good equity. Maybe they own it, and they're like, hey, I'll take it at a loss just because I don't want to deal with it. And that's where you make your money on flips.
Do you ever go to tax sales?
No, I used to, but the problem with those is that they get bumped up a lot. Like there's too many cash buyers, and they drive the price like way up.
Okay, so here's the trick with tax sales here in Louisiana. So when you start going to tax sales, you just go and watch. You keep going and you don't say anything to anybody. Eventually, some old man that's been there every single week for the last 27 years is going to come up to you and say, are you looking to buy a property? And you're going to go, yeah. And then they'll say, forget this, I got 3. Because they're the ones who've been buying these things. And then they'll buy it like it's another wholesaling tactic, but that's what they do. But as long as you start making friendships with the people at the tax sales, eventually you're going to get a house for a steal. And it works. It works really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great tip.
Yeah, just I mean, if you have the time, like if you're genuinely interested in this and you have something, just start going to those tax sales, because to me the tax sales are the best deals ever. But you gotta build a relationship with the people that are there every single week. And a lot of times, if the house is really nice, you're not going to beat the bank. The bank will buy back that house. But if, because
they know they can put it with an REO agent and get a ton of money. So you're not going to beat the bank on those houses, but the ones that are in like a really old neighborhood where it's starting to come back, the banks don't even want to mess with those. They just are like, whatever, just pay the tax record and get off my books. Right. They want to get rid of it. They'd rather sell it at the tax sale, but those old men will outbid you just to do it, and eventually they'll just sell it back to you because they don't want it either. But that's a great tip.
Yeah. Like, I like them. They're nice. I've made friends. A lot of them are commercial real estate agents.
Right.
You just don't know.
One thing I think, that goes along with that is if you're getting interested in it, like there's Facebook groups that talk about, that kind of stuff. You just got to be leery of, because everyone's an expert on the internet.
Everybody.
But that being said, there are people in groups like that are genuinely interested in giving good information. And then not only that, but like creating relationships to where opportunities are made and had. You just have to be proactive. Like if you're just going to sit back and wait for a deal to fall in your lap, it'll never happen. Yeah, you have to. If you really want to get into a flip, then just do like that's what Kristina is saying. Like go in and actually go to the auction, see the process, go talk
Study.
But like also talk to people that have done it. Just say, hey, see if you can take them to lunch. If you know of someone that's been flipping, or you hear that he's a flipper, most flippers that I've dealt with are pretty open about it because they're so good at it that they're like, I don't care, I'll share with you what I have. And
well, as well as I do about anything that you do. When people say, they look at you and they go, oh, he's got it easy, and then you tell them all the process about doing it, and you're completely honest. You give them step-by-step process on how to do it. They go, well, I'm not gonna.
And they're like, I don't want to do that. That's too much work.
Lord, that's work.
Exactly.
I tell people all the time exactly how I do certain things to like get to a certain point, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe? Yeah. Go ahead and throw them in the chat while we're just talking it up here.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Sorry, I've been like just going off on that.
Oh no, I totally can. And I see a future in tiny homes. I really do. I see a future.
Oh, it's massive. I have people that are looking, just prospecting for land to do exactly what my brother-in-law has done. Have you heard of glamping, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And
so it's like now that's the new thing too. So it's like prospecting land, and land also goes into default. You can flip land. I've actually flipped raw land pretty like a few times and have made just as much on a return than without having to deal with anything. Um,
So with that land, which is a smart thing to do you put any improvements to it, or you just hold on to it for a little
no,
bit and like clear out the brush? Like here, like a lot of raw land here is like it's full of trees and swamp and everything else, and then somebody will come in and what they call bush hog it and take out all the muck out of there, and then you see the dirt, and then of course it sells. Is that what you do, or
it's a longer hold for me. Like, so
uh-huh.
there's I'll buy something because I know that it's pushing out there, and a lot of times you can get seller financing with really really good terms from people, so you don't even have to put a lot of money down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can do one of two things. You can sell the note, which I've done that, or you can sell the business. But the biggest thing that I found is,
So is that like a lease purchase? Like here we have lease purchase. Is that what
it,
that is? Or is that
no,
a
it's like a seller financing. Essentially, the bank is the seller is the
seller?
bank,
Uh-huh.
and then you just write up another contract, and you pay you. It's like almost like a simultaneous closing where you close on yours, and then the deed gets transferred to the new buyer.
So you still go to a title
Yep,
company. It
everything
isn't
is.
under the
Yep,
table. None of this under the table stuff is
no,
totally legitimate.
yep. It'll
Okay.
show chain of title. It'll show who had it for how long. Yeah, you don't want to get into like this. So like a pretty popular thing here that some people do with wholesaling is they'll get something under contract and then they'll sell the contract. I'm not. I think that's a little shady. If you want,
Yeah, it is.
like, I don't.
Some of those wholesale courses teaches stuff that's really skates the line
Yeah,
of being ethical, especially if you hold a real estate license. Some of these people, I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to lose your license. So
yeah. It's
be
definitely.
very careful with wholesale
Yeah, if you're going to
auctions.
do wholesale, you have to be really honest, and really put forward. But the problem is that it makes it hard to wholesale because you can't say, oh, this is the value of your home, and then you go ahead and try to sell it for more, like while it's under contract with you. It's just, to
Hmm.
me, it just doesn't.
Jive.
Yeah, that seems very dishonest to me. So,
Yeah.
especially
Lo-
if you're an agent, like you said.
Well, people do it and it blows my mind. Lawnmower says, in theory, the overall cost and environmental footprint should be smaller than within the conventional house. Yes, for a tiny home, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then he says, but people need to be in the right mindset to be able to live in a tiny house. 100%. And I'm doing this thing right now. So developers have found that people don't mind living in small houses, but they are looking for other ways to do small houses where they're not necessarily a tiny home. So they kind of give conveniences of both things, but they just give them a different name. But essentially, it's a tiny home. One of the biggest complaints that I hear from people that do decide to go tiny is that even though that they know that they're downsizing their life, there is no freaking storage. There's nowhere to, like, you want to have Christmas. If you're living in a tiny house with kids, you got to have a Christmas tree. And where are you going to put that afterwards? You want to have these like memorable keepsakes that your kids make and stuff that you lose that storage. So some developers are building these houses that have the look and feel of a tiny house, but they provide a lot of that storage and things that you wouldn't normally expect. I'm actually doing that video for Tuesday. I'm editing that out now. So it was
That's
one,
awesome.
it's a developer out in South Carolina that's done a tiny home. The front of the subdivision is a tiny home type community, and then the back has bigger homes, 40 houses, 42 houses. It's going to be cool. But they're calling them cottages. But I'm going to show the differences between tiny homes and cottages and what the difference is and why developers are calling it this. So
We have cottages here as well, right off.
it's just a tiny home.
Yeah, it's a tiny home, 100%. But for them to get their permitting, they had to call them cottages, but they're just like tiny homes. They're only like 500 square feet. They're small, like, but they do line up right up in front of a bigger development of homes. So
All developments pretty much do that. They put the smaller houses in the front and then they put the larger houses towards the back. I don't know why that is. That's a thing.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
This is a really good question. It says, what is the number one way you make money in real estate? Flipping? How do you get motivated sellers? That's not the number one way I make money in real estate, but I know a lot of people do. That's the thing about real estate. If you are a real estate agent, there is a gazillion different ways to make money in real estate. You just got to find the thing that's good for you. Some people make it by just being a property manager, and they manage properties that people are renting out. Other people are house flippers. Other people just work with conventional, like how selling of properties. Some people work with only strictly buyers. Everybody can make money in real estate as long as you put the effort in. And then there isn't one magical way that is better than others. I guess commercial real estate would probably be the number one way to make a buku amount of money, but that is a whole different beast that I never want to tackle. I don't know about you. Would you say that the commercial real estate would be the?
So I've made my most money in commercial real estate, but
Yeah, see,
but not as even though I have a brokerage for commercial real estate, I could buy and sell commercial real estate. I don't do that. I have a broker that I use who knows a lot more about commercial real estate than I do.
Okay, gotcha.
But he gives me the inside scoop on deals. And now that we've closed on a couple deals, now we get a lot of them. So like before it even goes out on the MLS, almost like a pocket listing, he's like, hey, I have this coming up. Do you have any interest?
Can you do pocket list? We can't do pocket list.
Yeah, we can.
I thought the NRA, the NRA.
NRA, huh?
No. National Association of Realtors, NAR, not NRA.
The difference is it's he's putting it out before it gets out on the MLS. He's just sending out emails. So it's not that he's like a pocket listing would be like, well, you don't put it on the MLS and then
you have everything in there.
You have everything in there, and then you just try to get it from your brokerage, right?
Okay, so before you do any paperwork, it's just saying, hey, I have this house.
I have this coming up. Do you have any interest? And we always say, yeah, send me the details. So as soon as they get the details for the listing, then they send out usually an email to all of their investors. And then it's kind of like first come, first serve. But commercial real estate also takes a lot more money to get into the game too. If you're going to buy, like you're not buying. Like last year, I bought with a partner a commercial building that does manufacturing, and it was like $1.6 million. So it's not like you're buying a $130,000 house to hold. It costs a lot more. But what I wanted to answer that question before. I agree with you 100% that there's tons of different ways to make money doing real estate, but you got to do what makes you the happiest. Like if you're going to do something that you hate and you make money, that's terrible. Like why would you want to do that? Like find something that you really enjoy and then do that. Like I don't particularly enjoy being a buyer's agent. I love listings, but for some reason I have a hard time driving people around, telling them everything. I will do it, but that's like one thing that I really don't like. So I usually refer it to another agent of mine. So the answer to that question is you can make money in any part of the real estate, but do something that you actually enjoy and do something that when you get up in the morning, you're excited to go work and do it rather than, I have to do this. Now we all have things that we have to do and we hate, but at the end of the day, there's stuff that I prefer over other parts of real estate.
I hate plugging in all that stuff that you have to plug into the MLS, like every last detail, because they won't allow you to clone the information, even though that's the same exact house that when you put on the market 6 months earlier, they make you redo the whole thing again. It takes me over an hour, it drives me insane. But I prefer actually talking about real estate more than actually doing it. I've done it for over 30
it personally. I much prefer buying it for myself than for others, but hey.
I like talking about it, so I refer most of my stuff out unless they specifically ask for me. But I mean, after 13 years, I kind of feel like I feel like I did my dues and I can refer it out, and that, I can sit here and talk very openly with people like you, smart people that have been doing real estate for some time. I mean, I know you weren't a real estate agent forever, but you've done real estate in some way, shape, or form before you were a realtor, right?
Yeah, so my very first flip was even before I even had my real estate license. So I did flips a long before I had my license, and then I was like, well, I kind of like this, and so I've had my license about 8 years now. But I've flipped a couple houses actually before I even had any real estate, like I guess any liability being a realtor, right? Like I had just like, oh, this is great, I love it, and then for whatever reason, I got my license. So, but what's that?
My husband and I's first house technically was a flip because we bought it for 130,000. People that lived in it rented it, and it had been sitting there since 1992.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was apparently the model home. The owner was really excited about it. She lived in another state, and she had been renting it out for all those years. So now it's 2003, 10 years later. Nobody had done anything to this house in those 10 years. So I'm even talking about cleaning it. Like, all the same drapes were on there. It was in this 1980s color. And this woman had this vision of this house, of how it looked when she purchased it. And I'm sitting at the closing table, that's not how it looks. But we did all this stuff. We ended up selling that house for $235,000. We bought it for $130,000. We sold
That's
it for
awesome.
$235,000. So I mean, I was like so excited to move somewhere else. First of all, to get a bigger house, and then be able to buy it for $200,000 and then have all this money. So we just were like, we really got lucky before it was literally right before the housing market crashed. But
Yeah.
but it was a flip. I mean, we had replaced the roof, we had replaced the air conditioning unit, but we knew we had time, we're young.
Right.
So
You're going to be in it for a while.
so if you're going to buy an investment property that that it's just going to be your first home, buy a piece of junk that is going to sell pretty well later on. Like, I knew it was a nice neighborhood that other people had done flips and may have made some money. So buy one of those, live in it, find one room that you can fix up, because that's what we did. We did the master bedroom, this little tiny master bedroom and the bathroom. We did that first, and then we would go out to the rest of the house and be like, oh, here it comes again. But we did one room at a time. So by the time that it was time to sell, everything was done. Almost everything was brand new except for the windows. And that guy got a really nice house, and we made a hell of a profit. Took us forever to get it done, but it was done.
Yeah. But it's like a nice feeling too, because you've had it, and then it's like you did all of the work, you got it done, and you were able to roll it into, another piece of real estate. So I think that's the big thing if you're wanting to get into doing flips, is you don't have to make a ton of money on your first flip. Like, you don't have to, chances are you probably won't. You're probably going to be like, oh, it's a learning curve. But the more you do it and stay like vigilant and keeping your flip money separate from living expenses, pretty soon you can start to do a couple of them at a time.
Another good tip that somebody learned, I was taught this, was he was young, and he bought his first house and fixed it up himself and rented it out. But he actually rented out a room from a friend, so that way he could make money off of the house he flipped in. So he ended up selling that, buying another flip property, again still renting a room. He made more money doing that. So that's been his whole job. So when he finished college, he was like, this is making me money, and continued to do that all the way through life. Like that's his whole entire job, is he flips properties and rents them out. And that's how he has his kids in private schools. I mean, he's done very well for himself just by doing that. But it's a struggle at the beginning. You're not going to be driving around in a Mercedes-Benz because you're flipping properties,
No.
Like, I know that like you see these Instagram posts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm like, yeah, you rented that car,
Yeah.
So don't get hung up on that. Don't get hung up on courses, like find people that are actually doing this as a job and really understand. And also, if you're new to this, find out your area and study it first. I'd say if you're like absolutely new, do it for a good year, like following other people around, understanding how people talk to one another, understanding the neighborhoods that you want to get into. So that way it's not a big surprise and you're not in over your head by the time you do buy your first property. What do you say? What is your advice?
I agree. I think that's awesome advice. There are books out there that you can read, or to help you get versed in that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's actually getting out there and following someone, shadowing someone, asking questions. But if you're out to do it for, the right reason. If you think you're going to do it and you're going to make all this money right off the bat and just flip and make tons and tons of money, and it's going to be, easy, you probably shouldn't be doing flips, because it's really competitive. It's really hard. And the dynamics shift. When I first started doing flips were everywhere. The money was scarce. Now there's a lot of money and the good deals are scarce. So there's always a dynamic, there's always a shift. But the main thing is if you want to do it, which I think it's a great way to make a living, but it's also a really good way to build up a rental portfolio. Is buying these great deals, and then now you have them that cash flow well. And so making sure that you understand cap rate and return on investment, NOI, those types of terms, so that when people are talking about them, you know what they're talking about.
Right. You're not like, what?
You're like, what are you talking about? What is cap rate? What compressing the cap rate? Like, what does that mean? Like,
I have to give a quick shout out right here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
This is somebody from my area. She's from Santa Ma, right up the road from where I'm at. So hi there, Candy. Candide 33. Candid 33. Thank you for saying hello from Santa Ma. It's rare that I get people from my area, so I thought I'd give her a quick shout out.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got to do that. I don't see any shout outs from Utah.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but Joe and I actually have done videos before comparing houses from Louisiana and Utah. That was a very good video, and I still get comments on that as well. You should jump in there and say hello to some people. A lot of people
I'm gonna have to look at it, but it seemed a little slanted. Like people like Louisiana better because I'm guessing the target was more Louisiana.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. Like a lot of people were really interested in that xeriscaping. That's not a thing here. So I was like, wow, that's really fascinating. So you should probably I know you're not really big on doing the real estate videos anymore, but I would think you would want to like maybe meet with somebody that does like how do they decide xeriscaping? What is it that they do to I don't know. It's
a desert. So they're like, hey, let's put some rocks here because nothing can grow.
But there is some design elements to it.
There is for sure. And they're actually, when it's done right, it looks really cool. So they do some really nice stuff. But yes, it is a lot different than Louisiana as far as how green it is there and how desolate it is here.
We get bigger yards too. We have bigger yards.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I want to thank you so much for spending the day with us and talking a little bit about flip homes. One thing I do want to remind people is that if you haven't yet, make sure you hit the like button. And if you haven't yet and you're new here, please subscribe. Please consider subscribing. I do have some good content. And Joe, believe it or not, has a YouTube channel as well where he talks about Utah real estate every once in a blue moon. He does.
It's not as often as yours, that's for sure.
No, but you are an excellent real estate agent that is very busy out there in Utah. So if you're interested in knowing more about Utah real estate, go ahead and talk to Mr. Joe there. Tell him I sent you. You. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoys their Sunday. I want to thank Joe again, and I hope to see you guys really soon. See you next Sunday. Bye, y'all.